you operate. And that's what he's doing. He's saying we're going to do this because it must be done sooner or later. We're going to do it at the right time. It's so different than Franklin Roosevelt in December of 1941, reacting to Pearl Harbor. There is no Pearl Harbor. But what is similar, although I don't think it's exactly logical, is what happened to this young man who's president now, a very young president still. His father fought this war with Saddam Hussein. That's part of the story here. He was elected only to confront September 11th, which is part of the story. And the other part of the story is his thinking. He is a president who has adopted a policy of preemptive attack, a policy of liberation. We heard it so much tonight. We're going to liberate the Iraqi people. That is, in fact, a new American philosophy. It's aggressive. It's idealistic. It involves preemption. It involves the notion of liberation rather than conquest. It's a very ideological response to what happened September 11th, but it's also a son's response to what his father began. I don't think you can imagine this war in history if you don't remember that we had a war in 1991, we had an attack in September 2001, and now we're reacting to that 18 months later. I think it is all in a straight line of history.
Chris Matthews, the host of Hardball, thank you for that and for joining us with your analysis following the president's comments. And for more, to the Washington bureau chief of NBC News and the host of Meet the Press, incidentally, a very enlightening Meet the Press this past weekend with Vice President Dick Cheney. Tim Russert is with us tonight. Tim, a trickier question here is this. This has always been cast to the American audience as a slow and agonized decision process, almost America having its hand forced step by step. And yet, to a visitor, to journalists coming to this region, it is so clear, talking to the commanders whose orders came long ago. Some of them have been in country for a year. The U.S. Army has erected entire standing cities over here. This has been in the pipeline for so long.
Were being made for military involvement beginning last August. And it takes a long time to put 250,000 troops in region. And you can't turn it on a dime. And perhaps there are even those in the administration who were determined to go forward with military action because they thought ultimately it would come to that. The president tried very, very hard in his speech tonight, however, to suggest that he had gone through diplomacy, gone to the United Nations in September, gone to the Security Council in November, and it came to a point where the Security Council had to make a decision as to whether to back up their words, and the French and perhaps the Russians were going to cast vetoes, which would not allow the action. It's quite interesting, Brian, in my conversations today with people on Capitol Hill and at the White House. On Capitol Hill, it was very silent today. A few senators spoke out saying that we regret diplomacy has failed. We wish the inspections would go forward. But now that the president has decided military action is necessary, we will suspend any more comment and support the men and women who are going to be on the ground. At the White House, there's a recognition that there will be increased risk from terrorism. The color code is being moved up to orange, putting the country on high alert. There are military risks involved. No one can predict the reaction of the Iraqi people or Saddam Hussein regarding chemical warfare or setting his oil fields on fire, or the resistance that they might meet. And there are political risks. If the war doesn't go well, if in fact democracy does not follow in Iraq, but rather tribal warfare, if you will, or a fallout in the Arab Street. All that today, however, is come to the point where the president has said, all right, I understand all that. I'm still making the decision. 48 hours Saddam Hussein or get out, or we're coming in. And there's no doubt about it, Brian, we are on the verge of war.
Tim, when you come back from the front after seeing the confidence, the armament, the power, the courage, the training, you are filled with optimism for a short and successful campaign. But when you way back, look at the globe, view this in the context of the war on terror in the United States, North Korea, all these pots boiling, it seems a very bold move.
It does. It is high risk. There's no doubt about it. And it's interesting. One White House advisor told me today that, interestingly enough, today was the most calm they had seen the president in the last 10 days. Once he had made the decision, he is now very much at peace with that decision, despite all the attendant risk we've been talking about. Vice President Cheney, as you mentioned yesterday morning on Meet the Press, said that the American soldiers would be treated as liberators. And I asked, how can you be so sure? He said, that's my best estimate. There is a supreme confidence that exists not only amongst the military troops, but amongst the commander-in-chief and the vice president. And if in fact that happens, and the war is won quickly, and the post-war peace can be put in place, and the French and the Germans and the Russians all say, let's all be friends again and be part of the rebuilding, this obviously will be viewed as wildly successful. But at this moment, that is all it can be looked at, is the possibility. Despite the risks that are inherent in any military operation, this commander-in-chief has concluded that it is his constitutional duty to deal with the imminent risk of Saddam Hussein. You can question or debate the analysis or whether or not the conclusion is appropriate, that Saddam really is an imminent risk, but in the end, it is the commander-in-chief who's paid to make that decision, and he's made it.
And he has placed his sizable wager tonight on a successful campaign by an enormous and well-trained force. Tim Russert from our Washington Bureau. Tim, thank you for being with us. And Tim mentioned this as the president spoke. Tom Ridge of the Homeland Security Office, the newest cabinet secretary, put out a statement. Indeed, the terror level has gone up to orange. It has been there only twice before since 9/11, since this system was put in place. We're going to expand on that when we talk to NBC News Justice correspondent Pete Williams. That is on the other side of a break when our live NBC News coverage of the president's address continues from our headquarters here in Kuwait City.
The United States of America has the sovereign authority to use force in assuring its own national security. That duty falls to me as Commander-in-Chief. By the oath I have sworn, by the oath I will keep.